Good to go. So welcome to our webinar, Reducing Musculoskeletal Disorders, MSDs, in Safety Critical Industries. I'm Helen Evans, Head of Market Development for Safetytech Accelerator, standing in for Maurizio Pilu, who unfortunately is unable to attend today. We're delighted that so many of you have joined us, and it's great to see such a diverse audience from manufacturing, construction, retail, energy, regulators, government bodies, academia, OSH specialists, insurance and risk management, media, and of course, technology companies. And also really grateful to those of you joining us from Australia and New Zealand, USA and Canada, South America, the Caribbean, Asia, Africa, Middle East and Europe. We'll try and make the loss of sleep worthwhile for you whilst we're on. Of course, what this does demonstrate is that MSDs are the most common and costly form of occupational illness, with costs estimated at around $1 trillion globally. Today, our aim is to inform you about the state of play of musculoskeletal disorders, the MSD technology to reduce them, and hopefully to inspire you to experiment. Therefore, we've assembled today's fantastic panel. Representing industry, we've got Anna Rowland. Anna is the Group Physical Health Lead at National Grid, working in health and wellbeing team that covers 30,000 colleagues in the UK and US. Working at National Grid for 10 years, she has experience in managing all aspects of physical health and wellbeing risks and controls. She's also a qualified nutritional therapist with a background in applying interventions that reduce the risk of chronic disease. And then representing Health and Safety Executive is Matthew Birtles, who's both a specialist as a principal ergonomist at HSE Science and Research Centre, and from a regulatory perspective as the Health and Safety Executive is Britain's national regulator for workplace health and safety. And representing MSD Tech, we have Bryan Statham. He's the CEO of LifeBooster Inc. and a pioneer in the digital health and safety industry. With nearly 2 decades of experience in innovation and safety, Bryan has dedicated his career to leveraging technology to prevent workplace injuries and improve worker wellbeing. Bryan also sits on the Advisory Council for the National Safety Council's MSD Solutions Lab, giving him deep insight into the challenges and opportunities for safety technologies to address. Musculoskeletal disorders in industry. Bryan's passion, to address the musculoskeletal disorders, sorry. So Bryan's passion for innovation and his commitment to creating safer workplaces have made him a recognised leader in safety technology space, and LifeBooster has become a trailblazer in safety technologies, helping large enterprises around the globe enhance safety, efficiency and productivity, thus ensuring workers get home safely every day. I myself have been with Safetytech Accelerator just over a year, but have been working with clients in highly regulated safety critical industries, introducing and adopting emerging technologies for over 10 years. Although I don't have a deep technology knowledge, I'm passionate about solving business challenges with technology and making the translation sometimes required between business challenges and technology specialists. So to our panelists, maybe we could do a round of introductions. Matt, you could go first.
With pleasure. Thank you so much for having me here. And hello again, colleagues, also on the panel. I'm Matt Birtles. I've been around in HSE for just over 20 years, and all of that time pretty much practicing in the world of musculoskeletal disorder prevention. I'm personally not a regulator, but I work very much alongside regulators. They never trusted me with a warrant, but from Science Division, we provide some of the technical specialist sort of knowledge, hopefully to support regulation and support policy as best we possibly can. So thank you for having me.
Thanks. Anna?
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whichever one applies to everyone. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm Anna Rowland and have worked at National Grid for 10 years, implementing lots of different interventions across different aspects of controlling sort of health, safety and wellbeing. This topic is, I think it's something that I'm so pleased we're shining a light on. I'm glad that we're going to focus on this today, because it's something that has such an impact on people's lives. I think, especially if you personally have experienced any kind of musculoskeletal disorders, speaking from a person-centered point of view, we know how debilitating they are, both for people's private lives and working lives, and that workplace injury is one of the biggest factors in terms of musculoskeletal health, the prevalence there of it. So, just looking forward to the discussion today, see what we can come up with.
Thanks, Anna. Bryan.
Yeah, you did a great job, Helen, but thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to speaking with everyone here today and sharing some of our insights around health and safety technologies. I'm Bryan Statham, the CEO and co-founder of LifeBooster, building technology for a number of years to address musculoskeletal disorders, as well as heat stress, and really been focusing in on a lot of what, Anna, you were just talking about, helping to get people home safely every day, understanding these risks that tremendously affect people, not just for a short period of time, but can be for the rest of their lives. We're driven here at LifeBooster by the passion of helping people, and also from personal experiences. A lot of the team members on our with our company have either suffered injuries, or they have somebody close to them who have suffered these types of injuries. And that's really important, that we are driven around a common mission to solve this problem, because it is a global one, as you were mentioning, Helen, where $1 trillion are being spent globally. So yeah, looking forward to this conversation, and open to any questions or comments after the meeting as well.
Yeah, great. So that was the next thing. So any questions that you've got, if you just put them in the chat, and then we'll leave 15 minutes at the end to go through them, unless we have any burning ones, and the team here will flag them to me. But Safetytech Accelerator, why are we doing this webinar? Here we provide our clients with strategic innovation advice, supporting identification and piloting of emerging technology and new solutions. By doing this, we run corporate accelerators, sandboxes, collaborative innovation initiatives, and bespoke innovation programs. And our mission is simply to make the industrial world safer, more efficient and sustainable through the adoption of cutting-edge technology. Last year, we worked with the US National Safety Council to identify technology to reduce MSDs for the launch of their MSD Solutions Lab. We also did the world's first industrial regulatory sandbox with the Health and Safety Executive into Safetytech Construction. And this year, we're currently running the Smarter Regulation Sandbox, where HSE, industry and technology companies are working together to see how HSE can make regulations available moving forwards to make compliance easier to automate. So last week, we released a report named Tackling MSDs in Industrial Sectors with Emerging Tech, which offers a high-level analysis of how technologies targeting MSDs are starting to make inroads in industrial sectors. So I thought I'd start with Anna. Where's the current status within National Grid?
Okay, great question. So I'll first address technology generally. So National Grid, for those who don't know, we maintain the critical infrastructure relating to the electricity network in both the UK and US territories. So as you said, lots of people, 30,000 people doing both those safety critical operational type roles, for example, climbing pylons, etc., and also the office-based, both of which experience musculoskeletal injury. From a tech perspective, as an organisation, we 100% embrace tech. So, for example, we've developed our own generative AI technology called Grid GPT, similar to Chat GPT. So we've got an internal version of Chat GPT. So we certainly embrace technology, but I have to say, from a musculoskeletal perspective, we do stick very much, I would say, towards those more conventional types of controls. We've got the regulator, the HSE here, Matthew, so we would be very conventional, I guess, in our approach. I think we've certainly looked at tech. We've looked at wearables in man-down situations for safety, in terms of keeping people safe. Lots of different examples, but I think when we're talking about things like exoskeletons, etc., we're not quite there yet. But I think these types of conversations and the way that we're going, I think if we can raise the profile of musculoskeletal health, make it more engaging, and give employees more confidence to actually embrace technology, I think you'll see a change. I think with large organisations, there may be the budget there and the priorities there, but maybe not the agility to test things, to dedicate potential time and resources. Those are just some of the barriers, but I think we're certainly going to be looking at things like technology, like the exoskeletons I mentioned and things like that, in the future to really address this issue, which, you know, musculoskeletal health, it's one of our biggest reasons for sickness, absence and injury. So yeah, it's certainly something we'll be moving forward and looking at closer.
Great, thanks, Anna. So Matt, how do you see the technologies that kind of collect data? Anna was saying there about, looking at more traditional approaches, but, how do you see the techs which collect data versus the manual risk assessments? And you can answer that from both specialists.
Look, I'm
Mediator.
obviously slightly biased in as much as a part of HSE, we obviously spend a lot of time designing and making those more manual paper-based or now e-version with our TSO books publishers, but making those as accessible and easy as possible. But we did design them. Then also as an ergonomist, not myself, I'm a very proud civil servant, but there are many of our fraternity that then go out to industries and do the assessments for people. And so there's obviously a bias involved in, an historical bias involved in the paper versions or the traditional versions of risk assessment. What you can see from our statistics, I don't know if anyone's had a great weekend, but this next weekend, spend it on the HSE website where our fresh health statistics have just been published. So have a terrible weekend looking at some graphs, but they're very informative. And what we're seeing is, almost a plateauing. I wish maybe a plateauing. We've had a slight uptick in MSD prevalence rates this year. We need a paradigm shift, and we need to do things as well as what we're doing previously. We need to build on that and do things differently. And certainly some of the kind of the health monitoring, the data capturing methods that wearables allow us, I think will be very, very informative and actually potentially help us towards driving down the more tenacious cases of musculoskeletal disorders. There are issues with the paper-based versions. At best, they provide us with a snapshot. We try and get people to look at the worst case scenario when loads are furthest away, when the rates of repetition are fastest. We look at that, but it's always a snapshot. And actually, health isn't affected by a single episode very often. It's not one lift, it's the years of lifting. It's not one afternoon on a packaging station, it's many, many afternoons on the packaging station. And so a snapshot's very helpful. It helps you focus on the key risks, but we can add to that by increasing the amount of data we're gathering to look at not just a single exposure, but a longer exposure of what someone's day or week or month or longer looks like. And so very very supportive, and really do think it could provide us lots of insights that we're not getting already by our purposefully hopefully usable but relatively simplistic methods of assessing at the moment. So a big tick from me, and I don't think we're too far away from getting that adoption of these kinds of devices more en masse, if I'm honest.
Interesting. Thanks, Matt. And Bryan, maybe you could give us some real world example of LifeBooster, and especially one that has a return on investment, perhaps, because we're seeing, certainly from our report, that it's not just reduction in injuries, that there's a wider benefits are required to make these business cases. So yeah, maybe you could give us a some tips on how LifeBooster are doing it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's it's a really interesting topic when we start to look at how risk assessments and risk identification are occurring. Matthew, you hit on so many of those opportunities that come from challenges that the health and safety professionals and ergonomists are dealing with, right? And traditionally, we've been focused on these snapshots. But as soon as somebody steps foot on the work site, they're at risk all the way till when they leave the work site, right? And so understanding that cumulative risk exposure over the course of a day, a week, a month, or a year is imperative, right? If we really want to understand the root cause and get to the point of targeting and being more effective in our risk management and the controls that we implement to protect our workers. And so that's actually where LifeBooster has been focused for many years. Is we've been focused on digitizing assessments at scale. And it's about enabling the health and safety professionals to understand risk, not just from a snapshot point of view, but collect data, enough data that is unbiased and really focused in on specific jobs and across an organization, and taking that data and helping them understand really a baseline of their organization, where that risk is, what controls they should be implementing, and then validating that. I mean, we helped a company. Obviously, presence is a limiting factor for health and safety professionals. You can't be everywhere at once, and also, a couple of our customers have 3-4 health and safety professionals managing tens to hundreds of sites, and it's just not scalable. So one of our customers who had pipeline maintenance being done up on the North Slope in Dead Horse, Alaska, they were able to just send the sensors up north there and collect data really easily. We set the sensors and the workers put the sensors on, collected information. They collected about 2 weeks worth of data, which if you sent an individual up there would have taken closer to 6 months to collect that assessment data. And the health and safety professionals stayed down in Seattle. They were able to build their program in Seattle without having to send anyone up there, which saved them also around $50,000 to $75,000 in travel costs and the like. And so giving the ability to scale and get data from really hard to reach places or anywhere in the world is where we've been focused. And it's about providing operational efficiencies and time savings on assessments, because conducting assessments takes a long time, and health and safety professionals are trained in building programs and reducing risk. So if we can digitize and automate that very manual process, let's give them the technology and the ability to do that so they can spend the time focused on doing what they love to do and build programs and truly get people home safely every day.
Great, thanks, Bryan. So Anna, you touched earlier on barriers, and I would imagine, obviously, describing your role within your organisation covering such a wide area. But are there any other barriers you see, to adopting tech within, industry, moving forwards?
Yeah, I'll try and speak broadly and not just around large organisations, because there'll be lots of people on the calls that may be working for SMEs in safety critical environments. But I'll go right back to when we sort of started these provisional conversations, and I just instinctively sort of started scribbling a list of what I thought the barriers were. So just a couple of them really, some of them we may have already touched on a little bit, but just first and foremost, maybe a lack of awareness, and this could be from the top, around that musculoskeletal health is an issue. I know that mental health is very much in the forefront at the moment, which it should be. It's one of our number one reasons for sickness absence, and sometimes that does take the attention away from other factors such as musculoskeletal health. I can see that does happen with industry, not prioritising it within that person's strategy, that group strategy, not assigning budget for it, which can be a big barrier further down the line when you're looking at potential offerings and products. Sometimes musculoskeletal health interventions can be sort of siloed within different sites. There's not a coordinated approach. So decision making is a little disjointed. It doesn't ever happen. Products don't ever get over the line because there's a lack of continuity with decision making. I think maybe a lack of willingness to actually assess the risks effectively, which we hope doesn't happen, Matthew, because that's where people like the HSE step in. Cost and time, that's a big one, to train people. Aversion to change, we're human beings, and that's one of the biggest things, just an absolute aversion to change. We're going to stick to the way we've been doing it. Even if it's the best sell in the world, you're given the ROI, you're given all the business reasons, that potential aversion to change might be pretty strong. Maybe lack of health and safety personnel. I think also you are relying on behaviour again to make sure that people use that tech, that intervention adequately. And then probably my final point is around GDPR. So data, as soon as you mention data to large organisations, immediately you're thinking about data protection, how you protect that. Is this product safe? All of those things, obviously, when you adopt technology, you tick those off. They are dealt with by your kind of internal data and security teams, but they're just little kind of chinks in the armour that prevent organisations actually going the full way and adopting these products. That's what I've definitely seen in my time. Lots of little barriers. So, which is a shame, and I'm hoping things will change, because from what Bryan's describing, that's hugely going to save organisations time and money. That you get that kind of automated risk assessment type product.
Yeah, would fully agree there, Anna. We see the same barriers as part of our work, so absolutely spot on there. And Matt, what role do you see for technology within, health and safety, MSDs, and why are some of the considered low-hanging fruits like wearables, why are they just not everywhere? Exoskeletons.
Sure, yeah. Some of the barriers, Anna's mentioned already, and I think potentially something of a reticence because of the regulations are written in pen and paper, and these are now new tech approaches to those. I do think that there is a complementary kind of relationship there between what us as regulators, or insert your local regulators in your countries. I think in the UK we have a goal-based approach whereby we want people to do an assessment and then achieve certain levels of, as low as reasonably practicable in terms of risk management. While we do have some of our regulations, like the manual handling operations regs, have a schedule in it that says these are the things that you should consider in a risk assessment, do the wearables and does that kind of monitoring element to it, does that suitably tick the right boxes or not? That's somewhere we're exploring and want industry to genuinely explore. At the moment, I think the approach with the wearables is that they're complementary to your risk assessments and risk management approaches. They're not implemented instead of those, but they are hugely complementary to them. That would help get the maximum out of, the from circa 1992 here in the UK, the six-pack was out. Some of those are obviously those regulatory kind of frameworks aren't, or risk management frameworks, didn't incorporate wearables at the time. I think they only just incorporated the internet back then. They weren't designed around wearables, but that's not to say that the wearables and the information we're getting from there can't be used as a very successful kind of addendum and additive to the regulations or the approaches that we already have. In terms of some of the barriers as well to early uptake of these, certainly with exos, some of the early adopters went at wearables and for that side of support in task sort of stuff. They went at them with such enthusiasm. They did quickly find, I think, that there wasn't a perfect fit between the first generation of, say, passive exoskeletons and exactly what they wanted to do with them. Very, very simplistically, the initial wave kind of moved in certain straight lines, and human beings tend to curve and take lots of heuristic kind of. Now, that imperfect fit at the time, I suspect, has led to a lot of people saying, okay, we tried, it wasn't for us, let's move on. There's an evolution to all of these devices, and I do think that fit of the devices now to what people are doing may be a lot better. And so, it's one of those things where instead of jumping at this with both feet and replacing all your safety managers, and there's no one suggesting this, by the way, but replacing safety managers with wearables, of course, that's not the approach that any of us are advocating. It's about how do we do what we always do, but make it so much better, so much more useful, using the devices that are now open to us from the likes of Bryan and colleagues. So again, complementary, but I wouldn't do a paradigm shift in what you do straight away. Use these to complement what you're doing and make it so much more straightforward and give you better input into your risk assessments and understanding of risk profiles myself.
Right, thanks, Matt. And Bryan, talking there about early failures in exoskeletons, or just generally the landscape of the tech, and adoption of it, what's ahead for us?
Yeah, well, I'll address a couple of the comments that were just made as well. Yeah, I mean, when you look at adoption of technologies, some companies have fully embraced it and driven forward with full digital safety programs and are doing very well with them. But again, a lot of companies do struggle from some of the challenges that Anna brought up, and Matt did as well. Just looking at different statistics and talking about where we are right now. So 97% of companies globally have adopted or have some sort of data strategy, big data strategy in place. But only about 40% of those companies that have those big data strategies are actually using the big data for actionable insights right now. And then when you think about health and safety being usually a laggard when it comes to innovation, right? We've only dipped our toes in, right? We're just getting started. For companies like ours, we've been around for a number of years. We've gone through COVID. We've gone through some of the big challenges, which have actually helped to really spearhead a lot of the innovation. Because what we've seen is, like you said, Matt, earlier failures that happen maybe with wearables or exos or some of the even the digitized forms on your on a mobile app, those have all evolved. Technology moves very quickly, right? And so we've got a number of different types of solutions that have come and gone. We've seen single point sensors who have very specific applications, really targeted towards behavior change, right? So providing some sort of haptic feedback or an alert to individuals when they are doing improper postures or specific movements. And some of those have fallen off, and some of them are doing really well still because they found a nice niche. We're seeing a lot of movement right now with computer vision. Computer vision is really interesting, using either your phone to capture data, using AI to assess the movements of individuals. Still doing a little bit more of that snapshot in time, but helping to digitize that assessment, because not all safety professionals are ergonomists and have that expertise to go out there and actually facilitate and understand that data. These types of solutions help to digitize that and help understand what's actually happening with the risks. But then you have the infrastructure, so CCTV type computer vision that looks more holistically at an operation, generally inside warehouses and the like. Those are really interesting as well. Do support ergonomic assessments as well there, more from a higher vantage point. Then you have solutions like ours, multi-point sensors, where we're not focused on the behavior change side. We're focused on providing more comprehensive assessments from an ergonomic perspective or heat stress perspective, where we are informing the health and safety professionals and taking more of the continuous improvement model, plan, do, check, act type methodology to deliver data collection, analysis, prioritization of controls, and validation of controls. So really focusing in on a lot of what Matt was talking about, that providing more, empowering the health and safety professionals with scalable data and targeted data, and better operational efficiency, because that's what we need as well right now. So there's a lot of really exciting stuff happening. All of these are data collection tools, right? So we're right now at data collection, and what we see is going to be the future is AI is going to be huge. You're seeing companies starting to embrace AI. Some are starting to create their own AIs, which is interesting, but you need lots of data for that, and you need accurate and reliable data. So the companies that are going to continue to really be on the forefront here are those that are collecting good data, so you don't have garbage in, garbage out. It's got to be good data, reliable data, and en masse, so that when you're building out your AI models that are now supporting in control recommendations and things like that, and program development, to empower the safety professionals. It isn't about replacing safety professionals at all. It's about giving them the data that they can use to be more effective and targeted in their program development. So I think AI is going to be a really exciting future for health and safety across the board, not just for musculoskeletal disorders, but definitely a huge opportunity here.
Thanks, Bryan. So MSD, you know, we know that it costs organisations lots of money. We know that it's a big problem for productivity. How, Anna, you mentioned, you know, that we need to get it to the top, to prioritise MSDs. You know, how do we get this agenda to the top? Bryan, you were talking about your case study, and you know, you were talking about that time assessment. You know, did you need to monetize that to get that through, or is that something that you did after, you know, an additional benefit that you found after they wanted to pilot the safety aspect?
So yeah, we're constantly finding new ways in which a technology like ours is supporting organizations. Effectively, the more data you get, the value proposition gets stronger and stronger and stronger, which is really, again, an exciting thing for when you start to look towards AI. So in this regard, what that company specifically were looking to do, actually, I'll use another example. One of our large food production companies, global, they have 400 sites across North America. We're working primarily with one division, 36 sites. They have 3 ergonomists on that team. And what they want to do is effectively digitize and automate their physical demand analyses. It was a program that generally they would take about 3 years to do, and not every time they did the program, and not all sites were compliant in conducting all of their physical demand analyses. And we were able to digitize all of those PDAs in a 6-month effort. And what was really interesting, so something that took them 3 years, we did in 6 months. What was really interesting with that is not only was it your typical physical demand analysis, which can be, you know, 5 minutes, a couple minutes to 15 minutes, let's say. But we were showing them the cumulative risk over the do full shift assessments. So giving them more data, better representative sampling across multiple workers because of the changing worker population. And so for them to get that type of an ROI, to be able to be compliant within this program of theirs within a 6-month period, was just a phenomenal win. We had planned that out through program scheduling. We supported them in terms of how they should go about actually facilitating each of the data collections, building the schedule for that with them. And this is the whole piece. I think success when it comes to these types of programs and deploying and adopting technology, a big part of the onus is on the safety vendor, technology vendor, to ensure that, you know, we are supporting things like GDPR, and that we are taking data and privacy, extremely to heart. That was the first thing that we started to build out in the early days. But also working really closely and being very collaborative with your partner. That's what it is, right? When you go into these customer engagements, it's more of a partnership. You need to understand their safety processes and work closely with them so that you can get over a lot of the barriers that Anna was talking about, right? Because it's change management is really, really important. People are resistant to change, and if you can build a program, talk about the ROI, and get them to that point, you're going to have success in deploying.
Just on that, Helen, how do we bring MSDs up to the top of the agenda? The standard argument is the legal, the moral, the financial. And of course, legal, that's us. And I don't know if you've noticed, if you're here in the UK, if HSC regulatory colleagues have now introduced a lot more regulatory activity on the health topics, around about 1,500, 1,600 inspections on musculoskeletal disorders this year, similar numbers on other health topics. It's really at the top of our agenda. The moral is very much at the forefront of, we all want to do good, and that's why we're in the sectors and in the fields that we're in, of course. And then the financial, and there's an old adage, and it's kind of awful, but also very true. If you think safety is expensive, then you should try an incident or an injury. And at the moment, I think I'm going to quote these wrongly, so please forgive me, but for an over 7-day sickness absence, then we talked about £9,000, which is what, about $11,500 per incident here in the UK. It'll be similar across most developed nations, and so that return on investment is fundamentally important. And it just answers to one of the things that come from chat. One of the things that we can do is lots of snapshots as safety practitioners. But if you were to follow a person, a workaround to try and get a profile of their whole day, that's going to be very expensive. And so it is a method by which we can do that, albeit as an advocacy through the devices, that does produce a repeatability and affordability that helps on that return on investment, one hopes. Fundamentally, it's about the solutions and how much you spend on the solutions, not on the finding out where you need solutions, but it's all part of that equation, isn't it?
Anna?
Sorry, there's been a very noisy leaf blower outside, so that's why I've had to mute myself. I mean, people in my position, it's our role really to write these compelling business cases. We've just actually submitted a musculoskeletal health risk reduction paper that'll go to our exec. So that's going to lay out all the risks, the controls, the strategy that we want to apply, what we need to be looking at, where things are going, what our peers are doing, what's working, what's not working. So there has to be that engagement. What's also, Matt, I was devastated when he said legal, moral and financial, because I've just qualified. I've got my NEBOSH diploma. That was on the tip of my tongue. My occupational health diploma, so that's gone. You really have to get leaders engaged because they've got so many priorities. I think you have to get people to engage on sites. You have to explain the consequences of not taking action, not evolving. We've mentioned evolution on this call. You have to keep up. You have to keep up with efficiency. The world is moving so quickly. At National Grid, we've just signed up to big work, $60 billion investment to deliver capital infrastructure projects. That's going to create a lot of challenges in terms of delivery, safety, resourcing, and you need to have those most efficient mechanisms for controlling our risks. So making those compelling cases, getting leadership involved, visible leadership, getting people to look at the consequences if we get things wrong, and also selling the positives of making a difference in terms of, if you apply the right technology, you're going to get much better clinical outcomes when people are injured. You're going to prevent injury, and that it's all around engagement and awareness. That's the start to get you where you want to be if you do want to evolve and use technology for positive means in preventing musculoskeletal health injury.
Could
With
I ask a
Yeah.
question? If you don't mind, it's just what Anna just said there about engagement, and I think one of the areas of reticence we have over wearables, and that some of this will inevitably be automated to some degree, but at the heart of health and safety intervention is that engagement piece, is looking at that individual to say, this is about you, let's learn from you, or you as advocacy of the worker, what are the issues you're facing, what are the solutions we could put in place. And I wonder from Bryan, if I'm not picking on you at all, Bryan, but I wondered, what would you say about that engagement piece where you've got the ability to automate? Is the human engagement, the worker engagement, something that you think about with wearables?
Oh yeah, it's front and foremost in our approach, and it goes to the point where if we are not, and this is with technology as a whole, if we're not engaging all the different stakeholders, and most importantly the workers, who even in our situation where we don't take personally identifiable information, it's still these individuals that are helping capture that data, right? If it's taking a video of an individual, or if it's a single point sensor that's going on an individual, or it's us going on multiple individuals, it's you have to engage them from the very beginning. And so that's in everything from the buying process all the way to control development, which I think is really important. It's actually built into our methodology, that continuous improvement model that I was talking about. And we actually just finished a program. We went down to another global food producer, down to one of their sites, and in this, we had collected a whole bunch of data, did the initial baseline assessments, and then we got the whole stakeholder group together, which included workers, management, both from health and safety and from risk, in one room, and talked about the data. And there was sticky notes up on the wall and talking about the different controls that can be implemented. And it was so great to see this engagement that was happening with the workers and the health and safety teams. It's communication that we haven't seen a lot with our customers and prospects that we've been speaking with. And so when you start to see this sort of community approach around control, implementation, and selection, like, that is absolutely critical. And because this, like I said, I feel like we can really have that paradigm shift that you were talking about, Matt, when we create more of a community approach. And Anna, you're talking about awareness and engagement as well. Like, this is what needs to happen, and these technologies need to provide that sort of opening and opportunity to really get ahead and showcase that the technology isn't scary. It's not meant to replace people. The worker populations are changing at a dramatic speed. Processes are changing. New technology, like in a manufacturing operation, is changing really. And what ends up happening is production levels go up. You get faster lines, so people are moving a lot quicker these days. So some of the PDAs that we did 3 years ago, they don't relate to the work of today. And so having that changing environment, that constantly changing environment of systems and processes and workers, we need to stay on top and engage everyone so that we can build out the best risk management programs possible.
Great. So just before we go to the questions, what are your thoughts on risk appetite? Because obviously this is kind of sitting in a functional area, but obviously it's a whole business-wide problem. And the health and safety team can kind of end up being more, compliance officers in the organisation, and end users may not engage as well, or whatever. 101 barriers that we spoke about, and a couple of ways that we at Safetytech Accelerator approach those is, one is to do small, agile pilots, so that we get, information and buy-in, and it's not a big cost, and it's not a big implementation, etc. And then the other way is we've got huge, in maritime, we've got 2 really big collaborative programs that the industry work on together, which is the methane abatement in maritime MAMI programme, and we've got cargo fire and loss. You know, should we be looking at both or either of these ways to kind of move technology forward in this area?
Personally, and maybe it's one for yourself, Hannah, as a representative, but I would personally go for, sort of try before you buy it. So those small agile approaches, and let the demonstrable benefits sort of themselves, and let it grow quite organically within an organisation. We don't want people to do lots of investment, then suddenly realise it doesn't quite fit, of course. And so I'd always advocate for the try it as pilots myself, and let it grow as the benefits speak to themselves. But I think maybe Anna, you might be
Yeah, I would say anything like trying out innovation or technology. I know in the past that we've done pilot studies, so we've done it in, say, let's say you take 300 staff and you run a pilot. I think that's the way forward. I think if you've got a large organisation, you're not potentially going to go all in straight away, making lots of investment. It's you've got to test these things out. So that's the way, personally, in the past, I think is the most successful approach. Bryan may suggest otherwise. He might say, listen, just buy 30,000 units. Fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm extremely biased when it comes to that, and everybody should do enterprise-wide deployments right out of the gates. You know what? It's really interesting because there are different ways in which you can go about doing that. We've seen success through. So speaking of like the technology side, you know, your land and expand type models, right, where you do a pilot and you start small and then you expand from there. We've also built out programs, cohort type programs, where you start off with a number of sites in the first 3 months, and then you add to those sites in the next 3 months, and so on and so forth. There's different ways in which you can go about deploying these types of programs. And again, this goes back to what I was saying is work closely with your technology vendor, because I will tell you right now, we all want to do business with you. We want to work with you and build this out. It's and so however we can collaborate to make that happen, let's do it. So yeah, of course, enterprise-wide deployments are what we all look for, and we've got a couple of those that have been successful. But make sure that when you do the pilots, that you set really strong metrics for success, because if that isn't defined, then now you're getting to a point where you've put all this time and effort into that program, and when you get to the next level of looking at expanding this across multiple sites or organization wide, you might not have all of the business case laid out that you need to bring to whoever's going to sign the larger check, right? So that's good. That's a really important piece when you're doing the pilots that we focus on a lot, and that helps to drive towards success for expansion. There's nothing worse. No, I was just gonna say there's nothing worse than putting all that time and effort into doing a pilot and then nothing coming of it, right? And it's okay to say no. Like if it's not working, just stop it or find new ways to pivot, find new ways to make it work. So
yeah, with look for the intimates as well with the introduction of these devices. Of course, have a look for those key milestones. Do they help you with the risk assessments? Do they help you with risk management and monitoring against whichever regulatory framework you're considering? But also look out for the other sort of tacit benefits. Do they change behaviour? Does that personal susceptibility lead to behaviour change or lead to greater engagement with safe operating procedures or training or whatever it is? Do look out for those. I think that so far there's always been an eyebrow raised as to introducing these kinds of devices and going, that's what it does as well, does it? And those additional tertiary benefits, don't miss out on those by going large. Do keep a intimate kind of relationship with the workers who are trialing them for you, because I do think there are a lot more benefits here than possibly helping you reach in our country the HSE standards of risk assessment or so forth, which is a part of it but not the whole of it.
Right, okay. can't see that we've got any questions in yet. So anything that you want to, final words, because we've got 10 minutes left, that you want to conclude on for today? Anna?
I'm just reflecting on like everything that's been said. I mean, I would just make sure that, you know, it's not just a top down, it's got to be a bottom up approach to kind of adopting anything different in this space. I think just being okay. One thing that's really struck me is doesn't matter whether you're a large or small organisation, you're interested in what your peer organisations are doing, your industry sector similar organisations are doing. So I think the more conversations like this that can be had, the more success stories that are out there that can be shared across different industries, to, you know, spread the positive outcomes of any of these emerging techs, I think is really going to help. I think it's going to reduce the stigma or the barriers that may or may not be there, and get things sort of moving, because as you said at the beginning, it's a huge issue, whether it's financial, you know, legal, moral, financial. So I think the more conversation we can have and the more open we can be about potential solutions and control measures to these risks, the better. Pretty kind of simple stuff what I've just said, but I do think that these conversations do help, whether you're in a position like me, like a program lead, or you're more of a decision maker holding the purse strings. I think we need to hear about what's changing and what's evolving and how it can help us.
Yeah. And just before you go, Kailash has asked a question to you, Anna, wanting to know from a tech vendor perspective, you know, what would you need, what evidence would you like to see presented from them that can help address the barriers and behaviour changes, do you think?
Oof, that's a big one. I mean, so they're a tech vendor. Is that, I'm just understanding. So
Yeah,
they're
I would say so.
asking an organisation like ours. I mean, obviously, credentials, you'd want to see like who the business is, how long they've been around, who their existing customer base is, what success they've had. You'd want to see what the implementation plan looks like. We've onboarded a new corporate eye care scheme recently. That's that's tech, that's security. So I'm drawing on what we went through there, getting everybody that needs to be involved in those early meetings up front, so that you're bypassing a lot of barriers in terms of personnel. You want decision makers in the room. You want ROI. You want return on investment. You know, you want to hear and see everything as quickly as possible to get the momentum going. Because I think what can happen is momentum can be lost. Personnel changes, people are on holiday. Very small things can cut the legs off these things happening. So getting that immediate momentum, but certainly things like credibility, security, that would all need to be seen like very quickly up front. Just trying to think of other things. Obviously cost, not being too evasive about cost. Yeah, I think I've covered most of the things that have come to mind.
Thanks, Anna. Quick question for you, Bryan. Camera versus sensor-based technology for assessment of MSDs. Stephen's asking that one.
Okay, I'll try not to be too biased. No, honestly, they both have their own benefits and drawbacks, of course. So when it comes to camera, I think one of the great things about computer vision is the contextual data that you do get, right? You're visualizing not just the equipment and that the individual's using and the workstation, but also some of the psychosocial challenges of a forklift ripping past somebody and the stress that can put on an individual as well. So I think that's really interesting. Some of the challenges, maybe not a challenge, but it's still basically a traditional assessment. It's a snapshot in time. It's not looking at cumulative risk exposure, which is really important. And And you're also reliant on an assessor actually being present to conduct that assessment, and therefore, other biases that can come in through the Hawthorne effect do happen there. But it's fast, it's quick, it's simple, it's easy to go out there and just do a quick snapshot assessment of a specific job or task. Sensor-based technology, I'll speak primarily about the type of sensors that we use. So we use a multi-point sensor system that is worn around the body. We look at awkward postures, repetitive strain, hand-arm vibration syndrome. We look at heat stress as well. And so we create we also create a 3D representation of the body, which you get from a camera system as well. But if somebody's in a confined space and you can't get an assessor there, we can showcase that with sensor technology. If somebody is a driver and they're doing a route and they're stopping off at multiple places remotely, you can use sensor technologies to do and digitize and automate those assessments. So there's a lot of benefit if you're looking to scale assessments and if you have a limited resources of safety professionals. Generally, a sensor-based system can help with that. Otherwise, you get computer vision on an app, and you can send that out to your health and safety professionals as well.
Right. So we've got an interesting question here in about 3 minutes to answer it. I'm not sure if it's Matt or Brian, but I'll read the question out. They talk a lot about data capture and processing. Can they be a little more specific as to what the data is and how does that translate to potential solutions? Andrew, we might not get all of that answered, but Andrew,
No
we can
worries.
send something out.
Very, very quickly, quite straightforward. Think about any musculoskeletal disorders risk assessment you've ever done, and you've got whether it's from the States, the Arch equation, or from here, the back tool, art tool, maybe the kin tools over in Europe. They're all a list of risk factors, and the risk factors will predominantly be things like how much force or how hard the muscles are working, what the postures that people are doing, how frequently and repetitively and for what duration people are doing compromised postures or how compromised is the posture. All of those things can be measured. And so what we tend to do is observe and say, how long are we doing this job for? About half an hour, is it? Okay, well, that can be measured. And how far away do you reach from this perfect neutral idea of a posture? How far does your wrist bend? Where does your back get to? How far do you lean forwards? All of this can be measured. And so the data itself, it depends on the tasks that you're assessing. They can pick up on all of that. My wearable measures, why am I a bit too fat? Because I do my 10,000 steps, or do I? That could be very useful, especially if it's prolonged sitting and sedentary work. How long have you sat there for before having to go for a walk and get your 5 minutes activity every hour? So anything that's related to those risk factors, MSDs, pretty much can be measured, apart from mood and affect and the cognitive, personal, individual, how does it feel to be doing this job? And they struggle on those, which is why we advocate for, having some kind of intervention that's, engaging, based on engagement.
Right, thank you. Well, we've got no further questions, and a minute to go, so probably time to wrap up. And thanks very much for today. Thanks for the team here filtering through the questions. And as you can see there, QR code, download our report, and obviously the MSD report from HSE, the stats report, including MSDs. To look at that as well, as Matt mentioned earlier. And there, if you'd like to get in touch, there's my email address, helen.evans@lr.org. Any final words to anybody?
Thank you, Helen. Thanks, Brian and Matthew.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Great, thanks to the panel. Thanks to you all for joining. And hope you enjoyed the report. Looking forward to getting your feedback soon.
Wonderful.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.